Good morning and welcome to the WAVY Digital Desk. I'm your host, Sarah Good. Today, it's all about Shark Week. Now, this week is when Shark Week is celebrated across the country, bringing attention to sharks, bringing that education to the public. At the Virginia Aquarium, they're going to be celebrating with events in a few weeks, but we're getting it started early by speaking with Melissa Murrow, the Assistant Curator of Fishes, Invertebrates, and Herpetology at the Virginia Aquarium. So she's going to be with us this morning, talking about sharks, talking about, what they are, which ones are at the museum, and so much more. If you just want to put any questions in the chat for Melissa, then we can, try to incorporate those as the conversation goes. And be sure to follow along and share. This is playing on Facebook, YouTube, and WAVY.com. And WAVY.com is linked. Head over there, head to the Virginia Aquarium, and find out what you can expect in a few weeks. But I'm going to bring Melissa on now. Melissa, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us over here.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Just to get started, can you tell us a little bit about your role at the aquarium?
Yes, I am the Assistant Curator of Fishes, Invertebrates, and Herpetology. So my role is to ensure the health and safety of our animals under my direct purview, which are the fishes, and mainly any fish you can think of, including the elasmobranchs, which are your sharks and your stingrays. And I have a great team of aquarists that we all work well together to accomplish that goal.
And, the aquarium, we're so lucky to have it, obviously, in our own, Hampton Roads area. But you all do have some sharks right there at the aquarium. Can you tell us a little bit about what you have?
Yes, we have some really great species of shark under our care. We have sand tiger sharks, we have nurse sharks, sandbar sharks, chain cat sharks, and a beautiful zebra shark.
And tell me a little bit about those. Are any of them local to our area? Are some of them more tropical? I mean, where do they sort of come from?
All of the sharks, except for the zebra sharks, can be found locally.
How cool. So you can sort of get to know what's right in the oceans just by going to the aquarium and talking with, someone on your staff about, these animals.
Exactly.
And, talk to us a little bit about how their characteristics, might be different, or how they sort of maybe work at the aquarium. What are they like in the tanks? Just tell us a little bit about them.
The sharks that you'll see in our habitats act exactly like the sharks that you would find out in the ocean, except we do have some specialities that we perform, including target training, which makes it easier for the animals to hunt and to accept food from us in an artificial environment. These animals range from the smallest of shark. Our chain cat shark is our smallest, and it only grows to about 1.5 feet at maximum length. Very small individual. Up to our sand tiger shark that can grow upwards of 10.5 feet and
Wow.
weigh well over 200 pounds. There are over 500 different species of shark in the world, 43 of which can be found in the Atlantic Ocean. And they range from anywhere from 8 inches to over 40 feet. So sharks come in all shapes and sizes.
And, I'm sure you've heard, I feel like this year in particular, and I don't know whether it's just people's eyes on the news or social media, but I feel like sharks have been a part of the conversation in a larger way in the last few weeks, and people are sort of noticing them. But obviously, they're always in the waterways here. They're always out and about, especially when they're doing those migratory patterns. Can you talk a little bit about how prevalent, how much sharks are really in this waterway, whether it's, right here in Hampton Roads or sort of, right below us in the North Carolina Outer Banks waterway?
Well, like you said, sharks are always going to be in the ocean. That is their home. And your chances of having a shark and human interaction is about 1 in 11.5 million. But they're always going to be there. And the blessing of social media and the blessing of having many phones is that we are now more able to see and track sharks, not only by the researchers who use that for data collection, but also for the people who happen to interact with them when they are having some sort of recreational activity in the ocean.
Right.
I think the most important thing is to remember that you're in their home and to be respectful of that. Um, but again, your chances of actually having an interaction with them is very rare.
And, that statistic, obviously, one out of millions, I think that puts in perspective how unlikely this really is to happen.
Yes, and it always could. It always could. But yet again, it's very rare because sharks have no interest in interacting with us. We're not a prey item at all. And but we are in their home, so we are something to investigate. Just like if you were in your home and somebody opened your front door, you might go investigate. Well, they do the same. They want to know what's in their environment and they might come over and take a look, but the odds are is that they don't want to interact with you.
And I think that's the question on a lot of people's minds, right? Like, why would they bite? Why would they sort of come around? But that is interesting to investigate. I mean, in the past, I don't know if this is a myth, and we can go through some myths of sharks as we talk today. But people have said, oh, do I look like a seal? I've heard that before, sort of laying on a surfboard. Do I give the impression that maybe I look to a shark to be something else? I mean, is that something you've heard? Is that a real thing or is that a myth?
I have heard that before, and we in the professional world kind of we categorize it as mistaken identity, and it's very easy to be mistaken for something. Most shark species are crepuscular, which mean that they're most active at dusk and dawn when like the water's murkiest, and many sharks are opportunistic feeders. So they have this wonderful sensory organ called the ampullae of Lorenzini that permits them to feel electromagnetic currents. So that's why they like to hunt in those dusk and dawn hours because they're able to feel the prey before the prey knows that they're there. And so but that limits visibility. So if they're investigating something, it's very easy where you could be mistaken as a prey item. But again, it's exceedingly rare. But you do have to keep in mind that for the larger sharks who do like to prey upon the larger animals, such as seals, it's easy, to potentially be misidentified if you're in a black wetsuit and fins. Um, if you're especially if you're at the surface and the sun is coming down, you present a shadow. So they're going to come investigate. But again, we are not a prey item to them.
And you're seeing a little bit of footage of O-Search on the screen, and we've talked a little bit, and I think, during your programming in 2 weeks, shark tagging is going to be one of the topics and one of the shark talks. But how important is this week of just education about sharks and tagging and all of this work? I think, and one thing that, O-Search talks about, and I know that Virginia Aquarium in previous conversations has talked to me about, is the importance of education. It's not to scare anyone. It's not to make them hyper aware of sharks in our waterways, but to educate what they are and how important they are. I mean, what do you think about all of this publicity of Shark Week and sort of what does it bring, maybe either to the aquarium or to sharks in general?
We always in the um, aquarium field and in the research field, we always want to ensure an educated message around sharks and their importance to the ecosystem and to shark conservation. So the Virginia Aquarium is a proud member of the Association of Zoos and Aquariums and is a partner facility in the Saving Animals from Extinction Shark and Ray Initiative, which is a collaborative program that works to contribute to conservation and action across partner facilities globally with the goal of increasing knowledge, supporting research, and engaging our audience in a positive action for conservation for these animals because they are vitally important to the ecosystem. And so it's very important to get that message out there because they are a keystone species, which means that they are an animal that the ecosystem largely depends on. And if they were to be removed from the ecosystem, it would drastically change. And a lot of people I'm from the Midwest, and there sharks are not as prevalent yet. So, growing up in the Midwest, we never actually realized that if you removed sharks from the ocean, it would actually potentially cause our atmosphere to change, because they, being a top predator, if you remove them from the ecosystem, the ecosystem would be thrown out of balance, and 70% of the oxygen we breathe in our atmosphere comes from the ocean. So if you take that out, and then all of the animals that they typically prey upon would overpopulate, and then eat all of the photosynthetic organisms in the ocean that provide that oxygen, it would actually drastically change the world's ecosystem.
Wow. I mean, if you needed an example of how powerful they were, in terms of where they sit in the food chain, I mean, that's it, right? But that is, powerful to hear, obviously, about how important they are. And we know that, sharks have been hunted. We know that that's an issue in terms of fishing. And, to that end, tagging and sort of keeping an eye on the population seems to be such an important piece of this process, to conserve, to work on that conservation effort.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we just want to do the best we can. Because there has been, like you said, with the fishing industry, there has been damage that has already been done. So we're just working to create more awareness and get more people to get involved and to care, and to help us in our conservation goals.
Absolutely. And so, for example, when a little kid maybe who's scared of sharks, because that's, I think, the first way you're presented to sharks as these scary animals, comes to the aquarium, to get that education, to see them up close, to maybe see how they're engaging maybe with their habitat, at the aquarium. I feel like that could be a huge shift for somebody, to understand them.
Absolutely. And many of the AZA accredited facilities have shark touch habitats. Um, a lot of elasmobranch species, which are your sharks and stingrays, do actually like tactile enrichment. And it's a very good learning opportunity to help mitigate that fear factor that is unfortunately brought about by the entertainment industry. Although I love a good shark movie. Jaws is one of my favorite movies, but we have to remember that that is for entertainment. It is not to be taken as fact. And then, of course, sensationalized media, whether it be the news or whether it be people on TikTok. Sharks have unfortunately been given a reputation that they didn't deserve. And it's quite difficult to try to rectify that, but we are doing our best. And one of the best ways is education, and to actually come to an aquarium and have that opportunity for an up close interaction, to learn that they are not the big scary monsters that unfortunately they've been made out to be.
And especially, with bites, yes, happening in our area. I think there was a lot of examples, obviously, of them happening in Florida recently where they were sort of gathered, I think, in video. That is obviously an unusual case, as you pointed out earlier in this conversation. And so to have that sort of fear level when it is more of a rare occurrence seems to sort of outweigh, the benefits, obviously, in understanding them.
Yes. And I think it's important to have a respect for them, especially when you're in their environment. You definitely want to be spatially aware. There are steps that you can take to minimize your chance of having a shark human interaction. Um, and there are steps that can be taken for that. So I can go over them if you would like.
Please, yeah.
Okay, so like I said, sharks are crepuscular. Most sharks, not all, are crepuscular, and many are opportunistic feeders. So make sure that you choose the time of day wisely when you're going out into the ocean. I know that sunsets and sunrises can be absolutely beautiful. Just be mindful when you're in the water that that's when a lot of them are very active, and maybe that's not the best time to be swimming. There is a part of many beaches where the surf break causes a channel in between the shoreline and a sandbar. Well, sharks will use that channel to hunt for prey, because prey like to swim in it. So when you're in the beach, just make sure that you're not hanging out in that channel, and you're either on the sandbar or you're closer to shore. And then definitely, I would say if you do see an animal, I know that some people would think it's awesome and they would try to interact with it. I would highly advise not doing so. It's kind of a live and let be situation. You can admire them, but please try not to catch them. I have unfortunately seen videos of people picking up spiny dogfish and like wanting to take photographs. And when most bites that get recorded, a lot of them you will see are provoked with people trying to do that. Of course, there are some unprovoked when it's a case of mistaken identity. Um, Flashy jewelry, I wouldn't advise having like very shiny bracelets or anklets on because that could mimic the reflectiveness of a fish's scale. So when they are going for a prey item, they might misidentify thinking that that shiny jewelry was the flash of a scale. So those are some things that you can do to further keep yourself safe when you're enjoying the ocean environment.
No, that's great. So helpful. I mean, if anyone watching has questions on that, I think, in prior years, obviously, I've heard, especially at the ocean front where, people might be fishing later on in the evening. I've heard that one, obviously, about, feeding time and, maybe being out of the water or closer to the shoreline on that. But as well as, jewelry. And I think that's a great reminder for people, to obviously go into the ocean, enjoy your time, but just take, maybe a couple extra precautions, to have a great time, to not have a case of mistaken identity. Are there any other shark myths that you say that people, come into the aquarium with that you're surprised by, or ones that you hear repeatedly that you like to debunk?
Um, I'm no longer really surprised at most of them because a lot of them are, no matter where you go, are pretty much the same.
Absolutely.
A lot of people, especially when I go home to the Midwest and they find out what I do for a career, they're like, "Oh my God, aren't you scared? Aren't they? You're the food, and they're man eaters." And it's just like, no, they're not. They're really not. But again, I get all the time, "Well, haven't you seen Jaws?" Actually, yes, I have. But I just tell them that they're just misunderstood. And if they would like to learn more, I'd be more than happy to teach them anything they would like to know. And a myth that I hear all the time is that all sharks are like really big. And I love to tell people that actually the smallest shark in the whole world only grows to a maximum length of 8 inches. Some of them can be very small, and not all of them are an apex predator. A lot of people think that all sharks are apex predators and they don't have anything that preys upon them, and that's not true. Many of your larger sharks don't have things that can prey upon them, and they would be considered an apex predator. But most of the 500 species of shark do have things that will also prey upon them. Another one that I hear is sharks always have to swim in order to stay alive. And for some shark species, that's true, that they're called ramjet ventilators. They need to have that flow of water through the gills in order to continue to breathe. But then there are many benthic and carpet sharks that have spiracles, which is like a hole right on the side of their head, which draws water in and pushes it past the gills. So they can lie on the bottom with no issue. You also have buccal pumpers that can like it's kind of like swallowing the water, if I had to describe it. So not all sharks actually have to continuously swim.
Wow. So could you see them in a state where they're sort of just floating in that instance?
Most sharks that do that type of behavior are resting on the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah, our nurse shark in particular will rest on the bottom like that. So will our zebra shark.
That's so interesting. So you'll see them and people will be like, where are they swimming?
Yeah, why aren't they swimming? Or are they sick? And it's just like, nope, they're just resting.
That's a great one. And I think the size is very interesting. I mean, I think people forget, and thank you for saying that, 500, species or, types of shark. I think that is, unbelievable. I think people think of the ones that you hear, again, to your point, in, movies, great white shark. I think hammerhead shark is another one that people talk about a lot. But there's obviously such a variety. And is that depending on ocean? Is that depending on, water and location? I mean, I guess there's so many factors that sort of determine what kind of shark lives in that environment.
Yes, absolutely. The environment does have a very um, drastic effect on what species you will find. Like I said earlier, in the Atlantic, you're only going to find about 43 of those species in the waters off of the Atlantic coast out here in Virginia. And then there are I'm not sure the exact number, but I really only know of one that actually lives in Greenland up in the Arctic
Mm.
because it's just so absolutely cold. And you have species that will swim longer distances. So you'll find them not only up here in Virginia or all the way up to Massachusetts, but you'll also find them in the Gulf of Mexico. And then there are certain species where you will only find in very limited places. Like the zebra shark is primarily around Australia and the Philippines, um, sometimes up into more of the Asia region, but that's primarily where they are. And the chain cat shark is strictly off of the Atlantic coastline. So you'll find some species that can be global, like the sand tiger shark, but then you'll find species like the chain cat shark where you'll find in very limited places.
And that's interesting as well, as you travel, obviously, as you hear stories about sharks, to know what actually is in your waterways. And I think that's such a key thing, to be informed about what actually is in your area. And I know that you all at the aquarium do a great job about that, whether that's sea turtles, whether that's talking about certain fish. I think people can get such a great grasp on what's in their area by visiting the aquarium. But, before we wrap up, is there anything else, heading into this Shark Week, talking about your events or anything else that you just want people to know that they can visit the aquarium, or any sort of message for Shark Week that you want to pass along?
I would love to be so fully booked out for Shark Week. So definitely, we have so many activities going on, and I would love for everybody to come and be engaged and have a good time and take it as a good learning opportunity. You can find more information about the events that we have for Shark Week on our website. And we do have I do have the press release here, so if you
Yeah,
don't mind me
please.
reading for a moment. We do have our Shark Week is going to run from July 21st through the 27th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And during that time, we're going to have experiences such as the Fingo game, Fingo game, Shark Gate Guest Quest. We'll have a career panel. The career panel is, I would definitely highly advise for anybody interested in becoming a part of this field, especially if you are a high school or college students. Definitely come and ask us all the questions that you want. We want so many more people in this field to help us with our conservation efforts, because it takes an army. It takes a massive amount of people to come together, and it's a great group effort. So definitely come to that career panel. And then we will have Shark Talks daily from 11 to 2 in both our north and south buildings. And yeah, we'll have games, and it's just going to be a really good time.
Yeah, that's a jam-packed week, and I know that, it's fun, but it's also engaging, and there's education opportunities. And I think one of the topics I loved was shark superpowers and women in shark science. That I thought was really fun. So what a great opportunity to sort of catch everyone, right, as they come, what their interest is, and sort of maybe bring them into that world of sharks.
Yes. Representation is very important, and we love to be inclusive. So the Women in Science days and women that work with sharks, I just love that we get the opportunity to inspire little girls. And we want to inspire everyone, really, but it's nice for them to be able to see somebody and be like, oh my God, I want to do that because she can do that.
Absolutely. And I think, you're right up there. People are going to be watching you and seeing, what you're doing, obviously, in this world of sharks and in its education. So thank you so much, Melissa, for joining us this morning. All the information and to go over to the Virginia Aquarium is at the link if you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube. So you can head right there, take a look, buy the tickets, as Melissa said. Let's book out the week at the Virginia Aquarium. But really, there's something for everyone, it seems. And Melissa, thank you so much, for educating us on sharks this morning and giving us really this overview of, what people should know, what people should take home with them. So really appreciate all your time.
Well, I really appreciate you having me. So thank you so much. And thank you for everybody who dropped in to listen.
Absolutely. And if you're listening later, you can still head over to the Virginia Aquarium website. Again, this is not going to be for about 2 weeks. So you have some time, obviously, to check in and to find out more as we head into their Shark Week. But Melissa, thank you so much. Thank you to everyone joining us this morning, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.